Hello friends, welcome back to part 22 of my Tesla earnings forecast video review series. Let's check back in with Loki and see that he still is sleeping on the job and doesn't even care. And we'll get right back to where we left off, which was looking at revenue by type, and then looking at cost of sales by type is what we'll do in this video. So what you see in this next section is the same level of detail and the same presentation that we saw in the revenue section in the previous video. Let me scroll over one more column so we get all of 2022 and all of 2023, if I can talk, in the shot at once. So I think it makes more sense to look at the revenue in terms of total dollar amounts and have that make sense to you. Then when you get to the cost of sales amounts, it starts to be less impactful to you what these dollar amounts are, right? And to see them growing. Yeah, the cost of sales dollars are getting bigger because the revenue dollars are getting bigger. But what you're going to miss in looking at it this way is the nuance on shifts in the relationship between these two things. So normally, what you do in business when the dollar amount itself isn't very meaningful to you and it's hard to notice patterns, is to instead use a metric, like a ratio between dollar amounts, and compare how that's changing over time and have that inform the narrative for what's going on, which is what's in the next section. It's cost of sales percentage by type. So each of these cells are giving you the dollars for cost of sales divided by the dollars for revenue, so that you can see what the cost of sales is relative to the amount of revenue driven by that kind of cost, right? So higher is worse on cost of sales and lower is better. So what are we forecasting for Q4? We're forecasting a higher number. This is worse. If we go back to the prior year, here's 2021. I mean, let's go back one more year and look at 2020. So these were worse cost of sales percentages a couple of years ago, and then they got better. Why did they get better? The backlog got longer, and Tesla raised the price of vehicles to make more profit per vehicle and knock down the backlog so it wouldn't get too long. You don't want multiple years worth of backlog on your product. So a natural solution for your business is to throttle down the rate at which people are joining the backlog by raising the price of the vehicle. Try to disincentivize so many people from standing in line. So as that was happening, and as Tesla was making their factories more efficient, doing more of their production in Shanghai, which is their most efficient factory, the cost of sales percentages got better. They fell below 70%, down to a low of 67.2% back in Q1 of this year, and they've been higher since. What happened? Well, it jumped 5 points in Q2 because in that quarter, there were Shanghai lockdowns that closed that factory for 4 weeks, made it run at limited capacity for an additional 4 weeks, and kept a lot of the vehicles being produced during that quarter from getting to their owners by the end of that quarter. What did that do? It made Fremont production a larger fraction of the total sales during Q2, and that weighted average with California labor rates, etc., drove the cost of sales 5 points higher. What about the quarter after that, Q3? Shouldn't it have gotten a lot better? Well, it didn't. It got 0.2 of a point worse in Q3, and that's before the price cuts happened. So you don't have price cuts as an answer here. What did Tesla tell us in their earnings release was affecting profitability? Well, one was higher raw materials, commodities, logistics, warranty, and expedite costs in Q3. So a lot of cost pressures, a lot of inflationary pressures in here. Also, negative foreign exchange impact. They called that a $250 million impact. And also the costs of ramping at Gigafactory Texas and Berlin Brandenburg were included in these costs. So factories are very inefficient when they're producing at low volume, and they get more efficient the more volume you push through them per unit of time. So the lower you can drive the cost per vehicle produced, the better your cost of sales percentage will get. The lower that number will go. And especially for costs like labor, you're paying people by the hour, but you're going to have lower labor cost per vehicle the more vehicles you can produce per hour. Hopefully that makes sense. So that's why that number was higher. Then in Q4, I have it going higher still. So cost of sales percentage is getting worse and worse here. What's going on in Q4? Well, we have price cuts in Q4. So in Shanghai, they lowered prices. And in the US, there's a promotional incentive to get people to take delivery in December before the Inflation Reduction Act credit goes into effect in January 2023. That's a $7,500 tax incentive, which is going to be great for Tesla next year, but it does have the unfortunate, unwanted side effect of incentivizing people to delay taking delivery of their vehicle until January. So Tesla had to provide an incentive to encourage people to go ahead and pick up that brand new Tesla in December. What do I have forecast for 2023? Well, I have improving cost of sales percentages next year. This is what's in my forecast. I've got those factories becoming more efficient, producing more vehicles from lower cost factories. Austin and Berlin both should have lower costs per vehicle than Fremont does. If you have to pick the ideal place on earth to produce cars, California is not it. Labor costs are wacky and high in California, and local sourcing of parts and raw materials is also not very beneficial in California like it is in Shanghai. So the more Tesla can produce from its lower cost factories, the lower the cost of sales percentage ought to go, even with expected continued price reductions in 2023 as Tesla's production capacity ramps higher. And that is all I had to say about cost of sales percentage in this video. So with that, I will outro and say if you've enjoyed today's video, click the like button. Or leave me a comment that says, thanks, James. I appreciated that. If you're not subscribed to my channel, why not go ahead and subscribe to my channel and click the notification bell to get alerts when I post fresh content. Thank you to everyone who supports me through Patreon, my recommended way of supporting me, or by joining my YouTube channel. As my executive producers Kathy Kitchler and Halter Ferguson both did at the highest support tier, making them executive producers. Thank you. And I will see you in the next one.